Today's episode is brought to you by the Cedar Rapids Titans Arena football team. They'll be taking on the Midwest Monsters at 5 o'clock, February 15th. That's the weekend after the Super Bowl, so you can get your football fix going. And you can watch it right here on Round Guy Radio. And they are providing 2 tickets to a Titans game this year, which will all be on Round Guy Radio, to any game they want to go to this year for all the players of the game. Also, we have Smithburg Auto, Packwood Locker, Henshaw Trailer Sales. We're about to talk to A.J. Johnson and get our fix about the West. We haven't been talking too much about the West yet, but we're about halfway through the season and kind of a lot of it's played out. Welcome to the program, A.J.
Hey, thanks again for having me. I know it's been too long. You are right about that. We got to be better. I got to be better.
Well,
My time has been very spread out as of late. But
I did get to talk to you down in Keosauqua for a little bit at the halftime show, and you were very kind and caught up a little bit with you. I always enjoy seeing you when I'm out and about.
man, that day caught me so off guard too because I had just gotten back from vacation and I was like looking for something to go, some sports to find, and I saw and found that Van Buren was playing a game. I was like, awesome, we got competition to end the new year. I get there, they had started 15 minutes earlier than listed, and then I find out it was a scrimmage, not an actual competition, which is fine, but also like not what I was expected. So it was a very different way to start the day.
Well, I like event, sports guys there. We got to get home late, so it was nice to have something. I think I started 9 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But and they had the JV first and then the varsity. But I thought that little outing helped both teams, and both teams eventually got a nice little win. Van Buren gets a big win over Fairfield.
Yeah.
And then they lose Landry Leffler, or not Landry. They lost Lincoln Bainbridge in that game with Fairfield. He's out for the season. And then they lost Coral in the game against New London, who just has 2-game winning streak going on, including a win over Waco. So, but that's enough of me talking about stuff. It's time for you to talk about stuff. You said you got some things prepared. You got some teams that are kind of hot over there. So what's going on?
And I got a few teams that are worth talking about. But like I always like to do. I know you don't cover the girls, but I do cover the girls a lot, and I know there's people out there that'll watch the girls. So just a quick shout out to a few of the girls teams around my area that are doing well. The Ottumwa Bulldogs. I'm here in Ottumwa. Their girls are having a heck of a season that wasn't expected, first and foremost, because they graduated 6 seniors last year that spent most of their time on the court, and they got a new head coach. But they came out 0-2 to start the season and now have won 8 in a row and are undefeated in their conference. So shout out to the Ottumwa Lady Bulldogs. Eddyville, Blakesburg, Fremont, same situation. Last year, all of their seniors, they had 6 seniors, 5 of them played 90% of the minutes, taking them all the way to the number 1 team, wire to wire, losing in the state tournament. But they're not as good as Ottumwa's doing in their conference, but they've been competitive. They fought their way to the top of the conference. They're in the top 4 right now, and that's by way of a tiebreaker of Albia, who they I think play here in a couple days, and that'll decide that. So shout out to a team that came into the season with I think only 99 points coming back. And they have a 4-2 record in their conference and have been competitive. So quick shout out to them. And then lastly, the Centerville Redettes. It's kind of the same thing. Not as many players, but they had a stud of a player in Adriana Howard who was a lot of their offense last year. And, Kelsey Taylor has stepped right into that role and has played them also into a competitive area of the conference. They have a winning overall record. But the conference record, they've caught some heat in the conference. That conference is just beating up on each other, so they're having problems in that way. But a 7-4 record as we sit in the season with some pretty decent wins. Shout out to those girl teams. All right, now Dave, thanks for putting up with that. I know how you're just rolling your eyes over there. Let's get into the fellas. Lots of good going on for some teams that, in a way, we saw this happening, but also they're still kind of surprising. We'll stay where we just were with Centerville. This boys squad, if you recall, last year did some pretty good things. The Rice brothers were the talk of their town. They had KJ and Malachi, and Kaden was coming along. Well, KJ graduated last year. He was their second leading scorer last year to his younger brother Malachi, who is currently their leading scorer. And boy, he is having a heck of a season. 32.1 points a game right now. That's top marks in their conference, top marks in Class 2A, up there right around everybody who's vying for Mr. Iowa basketball, and he's in the top 15 currently. So shout out to Malachi Rice. And they are top two in their conference. And that's going to stay that way until they see Knoxville once more this season, which won't happen until the end of this month. Now, the first time they played Knoxville, they took a beating. It was 44-82 on their home floor. So not only do they have to hit a stride here outside of the break, they have to get pretty good pretty quickly if they want to have a chance at the top spot of the conference, which Knoxville has locked up right now, because now they have to go to Knoxville on the 27th to play the Panthers. So that's going to be one of their main focuses, along with not letting anything slip in that time. They get a tune-up game Friday against Cardinal. Then they'll have one that's always just annoying with Sheraton to start next week. And then, I-35 and Albion to finish out that week before they turn their eyes to Knoxville. But they got a lot of good things for them going. Malachi obviously is doing what they do. But if you remember last year, there was a stretch of games that I pointed out that they weren't playing very well. And my problem was it wasn't team oriented. You had Malachi and KJ doing what they were doing. And they accounted for 80% of the offense. And then the rest was, history. There was nothing they could do. Teams would come in, they'd accept their lashings from Malachi and KJ, but they'd stop everybody else. And that's how they were getting wins. That's kind of the deal here for the long run. It's sustaining right now because in their conference, Malachi is just a walking bucket, averaging 32.1 points a game. But their next leading scorer is Abram Pacina, who's averaging 11.9. You need another guy who's putting up 15, 17 points. It could be Abram, but that hasn't seemed to be the case. And I'm not saying Malachi's selfish, because that's not. I've watched him handle the ball off. It's kind of like those old Allen Iverson days where Iverson would try to get his teammates involved, but then they give him the ball right back. There's 4 seconds on the shot clock. What else is he supposed to do other than shoot? So I think they need another guy, and in my opinion, it needs to be a big guy. They need their center, Taysom Hawkins, to possibly start scoring a little bit more. Because here's the thing: when you get in those big playoff games, it's a lot easier to double team and bracket and plan for a guard. He may still drop 20 on you. Don't get me wrong. But it's harder, especially at the high school level, to stop a 6'8", 6'9" guy when your tallest guy is 6'5". So if you can get your big guy down low, going to work and putting in buckets on the offensive end, plus what he's going to do on the defensive end, Casey Hawkins just tied a record the other night for 10 blocks in a Centerville game. So, he's got the defensive prowess. If you can find that second, third guy to help Malachi out, this team is going to be tough to deal with and can actually make a run at least to the state tournament and, maybe even surprise some people and win a game. So I like what Centerville's doing. I think they're in a good spot right now. Like any team, none of them are perfect. They have some bugs they need to work out, and we'll see how that looks over the next couple of weeks and into February. The next team I would bring up that we talked a little bit about last year, the Oskaloosa Indians. I told you last year that Oskaloosa should have been a lot better than they were, and I stand on that because if you look at them now, they're where they probably should have been last season, which means they grew and they learned. Oskaloosa right now is sitting at 8-2 on the season, and they're number 9 in Class 3A. And they look the part. They're on a 4-game win streak right now. They beat up on Eddyville Blacksburg. They beat up on Ottumwa 2 nights ago, and they had a thrilling overtime game against Pella last week. I mean, the first quarter was just gangbusters, all out. They let them play, scoring left and right. It was so fun to watch. And then they got into this weird foul thing where the refs just wouldn't take the whistle out of their mouth. That game ended up having nearly 70 free throws in it combined, and ended up going to overtime where Oskaloosa just ended up getting all the momentum, getting the best of them, and ending up in a 2-point win. They're being led by Tommy North, who's scoring 16.8 points. Secondary guy, Tyler Edgar, who had a massive poster in the Ottumwa game the other night. You can check that out on my Facebook, AJ Johnson KTVO. It's making the rounds right now. Sorry, Ottumwa guys. You get put on a poster, everyone has to see it. That's the whole point of it. And then they have another guy, Ethan Steck, that's their big man who's coming along strong, only averaging 8.7 points a game right now, but double digits in his last two games. And he's just nice. I mean, he's long, he's lanky. The way he gets to the bucket and can score is a problem for a lot of the other guys to deal with. And so this is while you don't have a guy who's scoring 30 or 25, you got three guys who are, who can interchange nightly. Maybe Tommy most nights, but Tyler gets in there and puts points in. Ethan can find a mismatch and they'll let him go to work down there. Where where they kind of need their help is on the defensive end and being consistent in that because their losses are close, but it's those things where the little things that you need to tweak against a team like Indianola, who's top ranked, against a team like Dallas and Grimes, who not I won't say are out of their league, but a lot of people look like as one of those top tier teams in the state of Iowa in most of their athletic programs, is what I'm saying in that. Other than that, Oski's doing really well, and they are stringing together wins, three at a time, four at a time. As they go down the rest of this next stretch of the schedule, though, they're going to see some teams that may give them a couple problems. Norwalk is normally one of those teams that you look at and think they're going to give you an issue, and there they are sitting at 8-2, 4-1 in the conference as well. Keokuk with Jackson Clark is going to be a handful. Jackson Clark, another one of those IA basketball guys who left and went down to Florida to try to play at a prep school. And I don't know the specifics of it, but he did have that type of talent. He ended up coming back home and re-enrolling with Keokuk to play his senior season here. So, I don't know. I don't know what happened down south, so I won't even allude to why he's back. But the fact is that he is, and he's back to what he's doing like last season, averaging 30 plus, 15 rebounds here and there. So that's going to be a tough game for Oski that they're going to have to get through. And then again, at the end of the month, they see Indianola and Dallas Center Grimes again. So right into Pella. So the end of the month into February, the 27th, the 30th, and the 3rd, three really tough games against Indianola, DCG, and Pella that they have to be ready for to set things aside before they go and play in Knoxville and Milwaukee again. So their schedule is one that it's literally starting tomorrow really is going to give them a lot of challenges. And if they come out on the right side of that, it's going to be really hard to say Oskaloosa is not one of the best teams in Class 3A.
Is that when the Keokuk game is tomorrow?
The Norwalk game is tomorrow. Keokuk will be on the 19th, so early next week.
Oh, okay. Well, that's when I'll have mine. Old Jackson Clark down there. I can tell you a little bit about, I think, we got down there. It's a military school, and there's a lot of people down there. There's not just him. I mean, everybody's like him down there, and I think he got a little homesick, and I think he missed his boys, and I think he missed Southeast Iowa a little bit, and he thought, why don't I just, instead of being kind of a role player up here, why don't I go down there and just lead the state and scoring and rebounding, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's good to go to these, top tier talented places and get that type of basketball knowledge and play like that. But when you're the top in the state and you're recognized statewide, you can still make a name for yourself. And Iowa has. I mean, listen, Iowa State's the number 2, maybe now the number 3 or 5 team in the country after losing to Kansas, and they got a good program. Iowa men's basketball, it's a competitive program. There's places you can play and still make a name for yourself here if it's not going well for you in other places. And look, I'm from Florida, and basketball was my sport. I played a lot of it, whether it was in the gyms or in the parks. It's a different game down there. It's faster, and in a way, it's smoother. I see some fast-paced basketball up here, but respectfully, it's sloppy. It's fast-paced, tripping over each other, diving for basketballs, a lot of fouls. Up there, it's fast, and I'm getting by you, get into the bucket before before someone's turning around and actually trying to make a defensive play. And it's just a different game. That's anywhere you go. You're never going to see the same brand of basketball played state to state to state. So, excuse me again. Jackson Clark, very good at what he does here in Iowa, and his game does translate, don't get me wrong. It's just different, and when you're at this high school level, I think you learn there before you decide what you want to do.
He did spend a couple months down there the whole summer. He was in there. I think he come back leaner, meaner, and with his game elevated quite a bit. Yeah, he's got them schools, them same schools you're talking about, is recruiting him, and Michigan State and Michigan and some schools down in St. Louis, and I talked to their AD, and he's always having requests to come in and check him out. But he is pretty good. He's been on Round Guy Radio before this year, so
and I've talked to Jackson Clark when they played Knoxville last year, and great kid, very smart. His game is very fun to watch, and he's going to be a problem for anybody who has to see him. He's not a pushover, not a walkover by any stretch of the imagination. So, Oskaloosa and Ethan Stack and Tommy North are going to find that out, next Monday. So we'll see how that game fares. I might see that game is in Oskaloosa. That might have to be where I end up that night.
I'd like to see that too. I think
that's a pretty good game right there. That's all that docket. So see how that turns out for everybody.
All right.
So I did something this year. I realized that I had a team that was really talented, a school, I should say, that was really talented right in my backyard. And they were just a little bit out of our purview, a little bit out of our reach, TV-wise. However, half of the town in Ottumwa works there, and half of the town here works in Ottumwa. So the towns interchange. And I figured, if they're this talented and our towns are so intertwined, why am I not covering? So this year, starting with cross country and football, I picked up the Pella Dutch.
That's a good move.
Yeah, when you have a school doing what they've been doing, they won baseball and softball state championships. Then they come into the season of the new year, and their cross country team wins their fourth in a row cross country state championship. Their football team is back in the state title game, and their basketball team right now is ranked number 5. When you have that type of talent right in your backyard, why are you not looking over the fence? So.
And I know the KTVO listeners will be paying attention to that.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of, me being able to do a little more with what I've brought to the area and showing that I'm capable of, covering these teams and telling their stories the way they deserve to be told. And sure, that's a little bit of honking my horn, but I'm really proud of what I do. And I take a lot of passion into this craft. So, if I found another talented team that I thought deserved to have their stories told closer to home than all the way in Des Moines, where a lot of people are barely even seeing them, I figured that they would appreciate that. And so far they have. So I went and I picked up Pella, and I've been watching them closely, and man, this is, to me, one of the more complete teams in the state of my area right now, obviously. I haven't got to the metro or the Des Moines areas that often outside of when they come to Ottumwa, but their roster, number one, is deep. I mean, I'm talking, they have like 23 kids. Their bench goes from the scoreboard to the back door. They could play 10 guys down, and all of those guys can give you buckets. But their top 5, top 6 guys are the ones that you have to worry about. And this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning Centerville. So Pella has a top-tier guy named Jack McGuire. Fun guy to watch. He's long, he's lanky, he's got defense, he's got offense, he's got hops. He knows how to position himself on the basketball court, averaging 18.5 points a game right now. Their number 2, Austin Schulte, is a 3-point machine. At the high school level right now, shooting 37% from 3, and it's a smooth shot. Like, every single time he goes up, I'm like, how are you leaving him open? You know he's going to make you pay. He's averaging 18.4 points a night. So you got those 2 guys. Either night it could be one of those guys leading the bucket. And then you got your 3rd and 4th guy, Harrison Mullins and Mike Bennett. Both of those guys, great role players. They can manipulate the court. They can move the pieces where they want. Harrison's always ready for a spot up 3. A little inconsistent, but because he doesn't get the amount of shots that an Austin Schultz is getting, he's averaging 40% from 3. Mike Manning's the point guard, and he can take a bucket if you leave him open. So, and then on the defensive side of the ball, they're fast. And they have a guy, I like to call him, his name's David Gardner, but to me, he's like their Dennis Rodman. He plays defense, and he gets rebounds, and he's an issue. They're top to bottom looking very good. Now, they came out of break, had a ridiculous night, and beat Knoxville 81-54. That was one of Knoxville's first losses. I think they were undefeated at that time, if I'm not mistaken. And giving it to a team like that, who came off a state tournament last year and brought back everybody except basically Landon Norris and I think one other player who really mattered to their starting team, that speaks some ways. Now the next night they come in and they're tired and they play Oskaloosa, and I explained what happened in that game, but I didn't explain the 25 turnovers that Pella had that night. So even though they're a complete team can one be, get beat, and they can have nights where they don't look their best, and that was one of those nights. Since then, they've won two in a row. They beat Pella Christian pretty handily. The score wasn't that high, but I mean, they went in the half 33-9, and then Pella Christian was just a little too late. They lost 48-32, and then they beat a very good Indianola team. I'm sorry, well, a good Indianola team, 60-50. So Pella ranked number 5 right now. They do still have a little bit of proof to do for the state to keep them in that 5 spot because, luckily Oskaloosa is ranked 9 when they lost to them. But, they've got DCG tomorrow. Then they got Des Moines Christian, early next week, and that's going to be a test for them. And then Norwalk, of course, who is, near the top of their conference as well. So, but all in all, their schedule for the rest of it, they'll see Oskaloosa again on the road, which, they're going to want to get back. And, the loss they took to to Oski last week was their first loss to Oski in years. So, they're going to look for get back at the end of the month. But, Oskaloosa, again, they're a good team right now. And that's going to decide a lot of things in the conference between those two. So I'm really excited to see what happens here. I think Pella and Oskaloosa give me a very good chance to end up at the state tournament and quite possibly Centerville as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what all of these last 3 teams we talked about, can do.
I watched Pella and Pekin play, and Jackson Clark, they got 31 or 33 points or something in that game, and he played very well, but I just kept saying over and over, good Lord. Good Lord. Good Lord. I mean, they got 3 guys like, that kind of caliber player, and they come to the basket like I never seen anything, just big and strong. They're coming, and they're going to deliver that blow when they get there, man. That was like I say, it's a little it's a way better brand of basketball than the average games that we're seeing around here. There's no question about it.
And once Jack McGuire gets going downhill, if there's less than 2 people in front of him, you can expect someone to be seeing it dunk. Once Austin Schulte gets downhill, you better think that he's going to stop at the 3-point line and pop one, because that's what he's looking for, a transition 3. They've got ways to hurt you. I mean, I didn't even mention, their all-state running back plays for them too, and he's a great role player for him. Who else? Tegan Hoekstra is a great player for him. Maddox Smith. They've got guys.
Oh, Tegan Hoekstra, man, he's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah. They've got athletes. They've got players up and down the.
He was the Round Guy Radio Baseball Player of the Year, man. From 3A or 4A or whatever the hell A's they play in.
Yeah, so I would say look out for Pella. Everything's great till the sub-state rounds, because then it's one and go home. So you got to catch anybody on the right night. So you just got to hope that you put it all together. You're playing your best basketball near the end of February.
Well, that was a good decision, man. They should trust what you're doing, because that was a genius move, really.
Yeah,
I got a pretty good following with the Pella Christian. And I've done several games up there, and we've had their old coach. They get a new coach, and I'll get their number, and sometimes I don't make the connection. But yeah, we've had a lot of good times up there, and the sports is pretty spectacular in Pella.
Yeah, and I turn up at Pella Christian every now and then. A lot of times it'll be when they're playing one of the schools I cover more frequently, or when they're having a good rivalry game like the Pella Christian Pella game. I don't forget about Pella Christian. It's just kind of there's schools that I have a little bit more priority for and or with, and again, like at any point in time, if anyone at Pella Christian wants to reach out and
sound like those guys are juggernauts in your area. But you got some other teams I'd like to ask a little bit about before I let you go here. Sigourney's having a pretty great year. I picked them to be much improved. They had a couple setbacks, but they got back on track with a win, I think, against BGM the other night. But their overall record's outstanding. Also, Pekin's playing pretty well, and Kyoto got a big win over Hillcrest, and kind of improve their situation a little bit. You got anything to say about those teams at all? Or
Yeah, so Pekin was actually the one of the last teams I had like information on. I mean, I could speak a little bit about Sigourney. I haven't gotten to watch Sigourney as much. I saw them play Pekin the other night, and that was a little bit here and there. And I know Sigourney well enough to kind of explain what I think is going on for them. But I've seen a decent amount of Pekin right now. Also, shout out to their girls team. They're doing pretty well. They got a new head coach. The boys coach from Atumwa last season is now the girls coach at Pekin. And, they're having one of their better seasons. They just need to string some stuff together and, keep it going. But the boys team is lights out right now, 9-3 on the season. And, they're coming off a 3-game win streak. They lost to Winfield Mount Union by 5 a couple weeks ago, but Winfield Mount Union put up some pretty good stuff here. Pekin's had a fun season. I started the new year with them at the Casey Center. They went and played. Who was it? Highland, I think it was. Yeah, they played Highland there and just smacked them 80-38. And one of their top tier guys, Cole Milliken. And I tell you, it's funny because I covered Cole running track and running cross country. He's a great runner, and you look at him in a cross country uniform, and you see this squirrely little kid and short and just he doesn't look like a hooper. And then you go to see him on the court, and man, it's art. This kid can ball. He's got a handle. He knows how to get to the hoop. His three-point percentage doesn't do him justice because he can shoot so many threes that is 34.6%. You go, well, I wish he was a better shooter, but I promise you, if you watch him, you know he can be lights out from the three-point range. He's averaging 19.5 points a game right now. I bet he'll end the season at 2021. Great kid in Elijah Brock as a junior. He's averaging a double-double for the team right now. 11 points a game, 11 rebounds a game. And obviously, if you know about Pekin, you know about Nolan Glick. He was their running back who's just unstoppable. He's one of those guys who's also great when it comes to just being an all-around athlete. He's also not quite a double-double, averaging 10 and 7, but he's been a big help for them, and he knows how to get buckets when they can. And the list goes on and on. Henry Adams having a good season. He can shoot the ball. He can score the ball. Riley Smith, the quarterback, is also playing on this squad. He can score the ball. He can shoot the ball. And their head coach, John Swanson, has just been patient enough for them to build to what they have built this year. Now, you got two juggernauts ahead of them in Winfield Mount Union and Hillcrest, and they'll have to find a way to overcome that come the end of the season and the postseason rounds. But it's one of those years where you look at it, and if they put the right things together, it can absolutely happen. One of my favorite things about this squad is while you think about Cole Milliken's a senior, and Riley's a senior, and Nolan's a senior. They go into next year with some pretty good players as juniors with Elijah Brock and Brody Sabaski and Henry Adams probably leading the charge next year, and whoever they can bring up from their sophomores from their JV team. So if the culture is in place, I'm hoping we'll see a good Pekin basketball team for a couple of years before they have to keep figuring it out again. So shout out to Pekin and what they're doing over there, and hopefully it comes to fruition the way they were hoping it would.
yeah,
And then
I'll
as
tell
far
you.
as Sigourney, go ahead.
Let me say, I got to shoe in a couple things about Pekin there. Pekin gets a big win Saturday in a heck of a battle with Sigourney. They just kind of hold on. They had a 4-point lead with 20 seconds left, and then my man Solon Yates hits a 3-pointer and like almost instantly, and they're down by 1, and they stayed right into it. It was a real close game, a lot of lead changes. But then they get a big win against Waco Tuesday night, and they're going to be on Round Guy Radio tonight in what we're calling the Jefferson County Championship game. There's, we've always wanted to do we talked about a Henry County Championship game. They got 4 or 5 teams over there, but Jefferson County just has 2 teams, and they're playing tonight. They didn't use the play, but starting last year, the baseball team and the basketball team have been venturing over there and going back and forth. The games tonight, we'll have the JV game starting at 4:45 for you, and it's a little touch and go whether I'll do the varsity game, but I very well am kind of planning on doing the varsity game too and getting in there because I love to see my man Eli Zillman dunk the ball, and he ought to have some opportunities tonight. But I like this matchup. Trojans get a big win over your Centerville team.
Yeah.
And then they get nicked by Van Buren in a 1-point game. Van Buren plays great in that game. So I think we're going to have, I think Fairfield's going to want to get this. I think Pekin's going to want to get this. Fairfield handled it pretty easily last year, but we'll see how it goes. Pekin is riding a pretty hot streak right now. They'll come in the game.
Yeah, and I think Fairfield still has some ways to go. They got athletes, but I think from what I like about Pekin is they are a very unified team. They play very well together. It's none of the they're not running ISO ball all day. They're not pushing the offense through one person. Nobody cares who gets the shot as long as it's a good shot. And it's stuff like that'll break you down. And now, granted, I can't say enough about Ethan Bisgard as an athlete. I've watched him on the football field. I've watched him on the baseball pitch. I've watched him, play basketball. Great athlete. He's gonna give people problems. Eli Zillman can jump out the gym and he plays very well and he plays great defense. But I think Pekin has more of a well-rounded squad. And in my thoughts, they find a way to pull out this one.
Well, we might have to call this the A.J. Johnson Award or something. Got to give it some kind of a fancy title. I ain't figured it out. There's that Floyd of Rosedale and all that. And
Fairfield might get mad at me on that. I need to keep them in my coverage.
well, you're all right. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, whoever wins, gets the Golden Mike Award or something. I don't know.
There you go. There you
go. We are going to be having that tonight, and whether I do the varsity game or not, you'll be able to see it on the tunnel radio if I'm not doing it. But I don't want to shout out the competition too much about that. Well, you got any words on Keota at all, or it just you got so many teams you can't get to all of them?
Yeah, I did this last year. I am trying to find my way to Keota. So Keota is an hour away from me. And so most of the time, if I'm going to try to find my way to Keota, it's when it's going to be a Monday when there aren't many games going on, or Saturday or something of that nature. Or maybe I could try to get them on my Friday night shows. But it's really hard to get out there, get back in time to get the girls and the boys game, because the boys game starting at 7:30. So
I hate that. I was at a game that started at about 8:30 Tuesday night.
Goes to overtime, I'm screwed, because I'm not going to get back in time to put everything together and get it on our 10 o'clock show.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I really, I've got a special place for my heart for Keota, and I'm going to get to one of their games soon, but I have not seen enough Keota very much to my dismay. So, but I'll say this: I know that after losing what they lost last year, for them to come back in and be 8-3, top 4 there in their conference again, it's just a testament to Coach Scout and just what they have in that basketball program in Keota. And it comes from watching so many teams before be so good that these guys want to grow up and be Keota boys basketball players, and it keeps that programs turning. So just a shout out to them from the outside looking in. And once I do get a little bit more on them, trust me, I can't wait to talk about it.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else for you. You got any other parting shots or any ways to follow you on the social media or in the KTVO or any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. My main social media is the Facebook. I try to get posting on X, formerly known as Twitter, but I forget way too often. But AJ Johnson KTVO on Facebook, AJ Johnson _ KTVO on X. And then obviously you can turn on that television on Monday through Friday and catch me at 6 p.m. on ABC or 6:30 p.m. on CBS. And that's KTVO and Tri-State Trusted, and that's where you'll get your sports updates for the day, where we're going for games, highlights at 10 on ABC. Yeah, I'm always around. Don't be afraid to say hello. Be like, hey, heard you're around, guy. You suck at what you do, or I really like really like your takes, whatever it may be. I'm always down to laugh and talk it up with the community, man. You guys have all embraced me, and I could never be more appreciative.
We've been talking to AJ Johnson, KTVO's extraordinary Iowa reporter. He's got a big chunk of area that he's covering anymore, and he's adding Pella to it. thanks for taking a little time with us. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations on getting us some outstanding basketball games and keeping us up on what's going. He is in charge of what we call the West Side. He is the West. Gives us updates on all those teams on the West Side. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.